Bath and North East Somerset, Cabinet Member for Climate Emergency for Bath and North East Somerset. I'm really glad you could join us this evening, and welcome to the first in our series of weekly climate conversations, in which I'll be talking to local activists, entrepreneurs and groups about the measures they're taking to counter the climate and nature emergencies. You'll be able to join future events by going to our Eventbrite page for Sarah Warren's Climate Conversations and booking on there, and you'll be sent a link. So first this evening, we'll hear from my guest, and then during the course of that conversation, you'll be able to input questions, any questions you have for him, using the tab at the top right of your screen. And when I finish chatting with him, then my colleague, Councillor Matt McCabe, will pull together some questions. If you could put in your first name and some information about where you live, then we'll know who's asking, and Matt will put some questions to my guest. So I'm delighted this evening to welcome Adam Gretton, the founder of More Trees for Bath and North East Somerset. We'll be discussing his journey, the organisation, his ideas around community-based tree nurseries, and finally we're going to be going into how you can help. So Adam, thanks so much for being here. Really delighted to have you here. More Trees for Bath and North East Somerset. What was it that gave you the idea in the first place?
Yeah, hi Sarah, and thanks very much. Feel really honoured to be part of these climate conversations, so thank you very much. But yeah, I mean, the background, we've been going since 2008. At that time, I'd just had my second child, and I was really worried about climate change, and really worried about what the world was going to be like for them and for their children to inherit. And at the time, I think I had a subscription to the National Geographic, and there's this wonderful article about the mayor of Paris at the time, and he was obsessed with creating green space. And by the end of his tenure as mayor, 30% of Paris was green space. I'm not quite sure what it was at the beginning, but I think it was quite an impressive increase. Yeah, exactly. And so that's what we thought More Trees BANES would be about at first, would be planting trees in these kind of disused waste grounds and, random bits of concrete here and there. But we quite quickly realised it's a lot easier to plant trees in nice soft earth, much simpler. So we partnered quite early on with BANES Council, with the Parks Department, and with a lot of the councillors as well, and we found the council's been really supportive of what we've been doing.
So the council's hoping to plant a lot of trees over the next 3 years. So what do you see as being your role in that?
Yeah, so I mean, what we've done so far has been quite small. So over the last 12 years, we planted 8,000 trees. It's quite small scale. It's something we do in our spare time. We've all got, jobs and families and studies and things. So none of us do this full time. But, there's this huge groundswell of desire to plant trees at the moment. So we really feel that this is our time to scale up our work. And, we want to have a more significant impact. So one of the ideas that we've got for supporting the council is in actually growing trees from scratch.
I think you're right about that, actually. As a councillor, I'm really hearing from people a lot at the moment about how much they want to get involved in planting trees. So after you set up More Trees for Bath and North East Somerset, how long was it until you planted your first tree?
Well, it's quite. I think I planted 2 little trees in my garden, so it's quite quick. But in terms of doing a community-based planting event, it was quite quick. I think it was the following winter. So the Parks Department were really helpful. Particular shout out to Mark Cassidy and Denise Hart. They've been great to partner with over the years. So we planted at the edge of different parklands. And one of the early successful projects was up in Weston. And a field near the archery field came back into possession of the council, and we helped them plant that up. And it's been a particularly successful project, but all over really.
So that was 10 years ago or so then?
It's 12, 12 years ago now. So it's quite satisfying going back to some of these sites, and these trees are huge, you know, 25, 30 foot tall now, some of them. So,
There's a lovely woodland there now.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and is this your background, Adam? Are you a gardener by background?
No, it's really funny. I'm one of 4 brothers. 2 of them, Neil and Tom, are both tree surgeons, and they've been massively helpful because they've got that arboricultural knowledge, which I don't. So it's not my background. My day job, I'm a pen pusher. I work in an office. I sell HR software. And for me, tree planting is firstly to do something positive about climate change, but it's also a respite from being stuck in the office. I love getting my hands in the dirt and, you know, getting some fresh air and meeting like-minded people. It's been really good fun.
Yeah. And so what types of trees do you typically plant? It's
always native. So it's always native varieties. A lot of woodland trees, hedgerow trees. It depends on where it's going to be. But, you know, you can plant, you know, a lot of native hedgerow trees at quite a low cost. We've also done a lot of fruit trees. One thing that we do every year is a big fruit tree giveaway. We pick one ward every year, and then we ask people to come forward to request a free tree. And that's been fantastic. It's really nice because people get food grown in their gardens. And it's also good for us because we don't have to dig the holes. People just take the trees.
What a great idea. And how do you, so you said that planting in pavements is not the best location. So what is the best location for planting trees?
Well, there's loads of different places you can do it. I mean, street trees are fantastic. We haven't actually done any because it's really complicated and expensive, so we leave that to the council to worry about. But, you know, street trees are fantastic because you've got pollution, you know, it breaks up, you know, concrete jungle. So, you know, that's fantastic. You know, the edge of parkland, the council will be doing some great stuff with leaving some grasslands to grow long, so you get more of a wildflower grassland going along, and, you know, trees can obviously be part of the plan with that as well. It's quite satisfying planting native stuff that produces fruit and nuts, you know, and that might be eaten by humans unless the squirrels get there before you.
Yeah, and do you find it easy to get access to land?
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, it depends. You know, it's a bit like, you know, to have a fire, you need fuel, heat, and oxygen. You know, to plant trees, you've got to have land, you've got to have the trees, you've got to have the labour, you know, and the money's got to come from somewhere. But we always manage to get, you know, 2 or 3 projects every winter. But as I said, we really want to scale up now. So we're really interested in hearing from landowners, you know, particularly, who might have space to plant trees permanently there, or have space to grow some trees that will be planted somewhere else.
So I was going to ask where you get your trees from.
Yeah, well, so far, most of the trees we've bought. So we've bought them from commercial nurseries. We try and go as local as possible. There's some really good nurseries in and around B&NES that we've used over the years. We've also now got our own mini nursery, or at least we're helping manage a space at the Dry Arch Growers where we're growing some trees, and that's been fantastic. And that's really been the catalyst for our idea for community nurseries. We've realised that actually we could be setting up these nurseries all across B&NES and grow trees for next to no money.
So the Dry Arch Growers, that's in Barthampton, isn't it?
Yes, that's right, yeah. It's a brilliant project. And they had a little corner which they'd always planned on setting up as a little tree nursery, so we've been able to support them with that. About 1,400 trees have been grown on and planted out through that space.
So how many of you are there at the moment, and do you need more volunteers?
Yes, please. So yeah, there's about 5 to 10 of us in the core group. So we have we used to have a monthly meeting, kind of committee meeting, and then we have people helping behind the scenes, either with you know, finances, or, you know, my brother Neil, tree surgeon, who's there at every event with his 4-wheel drive and all his equipment and everything. And we've been really successful in mobilising volunteers. So we've got a really good social media following. There's over 1,000 people on our Twitter and over 1,000 on Facebook, and 400 people on our email list. It's been really great. We've got a lot of people interested, and people have been really good at converting that interest into actually helping us. So we had about 60 people turn up at a planting event this winter, which was really cool. And so we don't really have a huge challenge in getting people along to help plant trees. What we could really do with is help taking this next idea on in terms of helping us organise it from a kind of administration point of view. But then also there are going to be opportunities for local nurseries to be set up, and we're going to need help. Well, each nursery will need to be managed.
So nursery managers and administration, and then people who like to get their hands dirty and plant trees.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so people with technical, tree knowledge, fantastic. People with absolutely no knowledge and a bit of enthusiasm, also fantastic. We'll find something for anyone to do.
And how have you been affected by coronavirus then in the last few weeks?
Yeah, well, we obviously haven't been able to have our committee meetings. We're going to start doing them virtually like this, so we will pick that up. It's been a bit frustrating for me because, well, the planting season had finished, so from that point of view, the timing was good for us because we've got all the trees in the ground that we're planning to plant for the winter. What we haven't been able to do is go back and tidy them up and sort out the stakes and the mulching and things like that. I think there will be a way that we could do that safely, but we've just been extra safe at the moment, and we just haven't been going out to do it because we haven't viewed it as completely essential. But unless we go and give them some kind of TLC, some of these trees are going to die. So I think we'll need to plan something. Yeah,
it's been quite dry, hasn't it? They must.
Yeah, it has. Yeah, thankfully some rain this week.
Yeah. So, I have got one more question. So how are you set up? Are you a charity? Can people give you money?
Yeah, so we're a not-for-profit community group. Because we're quite small, it's quite small scale so far. We didn't feel the need to register as a charity. Mm-hmm. The good thing is that we've got a local giving donation page where people can go, and we can collect gift aid, and it's also tax efficient, so it's just as good as donating to a registered charity. So that's been really good. But no, we're just a community group.
Right. So you've got a local giving page.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that's all the questions I have at the moment. Let's see whether Matt McCabe has got any questions from the audience.
I haven't got that many. There's not that many have come in, but I've got a question that I wanted to ask, which is, what's your favourite tree and why?
Well, I think probably hazel. Because you can plant it almost anywhere, and it's really versatile. You can prune it back every year, you can coppice it, you can do all sorts of things, and plus you can eat the nuts. The squirrels go mad for it, and it's just quite a quintessential English British tree, I think. Yeah, I was just thinking if there aren't that many questions, I could probably go into a bit more detail about our kind of plans for the community nurseries and kind of where that idea came from, if you like.
That'd be brilliant.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, where this idea for community nurseries came from was, we saw these huge plans for, vast numbers of trees to be planted. The council, as you said, planning to plant 100,000 trees in 3 years. Wessex Water are part of a plan to plant 11 million trees by 2030 across the whole country. And then we've got, Avon needs trees. They've just bought 34 acres, and they're going to be planting that up. And it's just fantastic, and it's great to see these projects underway and money being made available. But, we've got a question, and it's a big question. Where are all these trees going to come from? We've been getting most of our trees from commercial nurseries like the council has. And some of these nurseries are expanding. I know Chew Valley Trees have bought an extra field, but even so, they're not going to be able to keep up with the demand. What's happened in the past is lots of trees get imported from abroad, and that's not great from a carbon point of view, but also it brings with it all sorts of biosecurity risks, ash dieback disease being a case in in point. You know, all of our ash trees are going to die. Probably would have happened anyway, but it's been accelerated because trees were imported. So what we want to do, what more trees are going to really focus on now to help all of these other people that are wanting to plant trees, is we want to get everyone growing trees. So, you know, we're still going to need the commercial nurseries. They're still going to sell out all of their stock. I don't think no need to worry. But, you know, we envisage every school setting aside an area as a tree nursery. You know, places of worship, gardening groups, local authorities, parish councils, you know, social housing landlords, businesses. You know, it could even be someone in their garden where they might just have half a veg bed they're not using, and actually they could plant a few seeds and just grow on some trees to be planted elsewhere. So that's the idea for this campaign, is to set up a network of mini community nurseries where trees can be grown from seed and cuttings and then planted elsewhere.
What about rehoming trees? I mean, if you're a gardener, you're always pulling out little saplings. Do you think there's scope to rehome them to in the local area?
And it's so true. And we came up with this idea of a tree adoption agency where, you know, people were potting up those little saplings and giving them to us. But what we found is it's quite hard because someone might just have 2 or 3 trees and they're on the other side of B&NES. And so trying to collect it and then trying to keep them all alive in pots, we found it quite hard. But what we want to do now is, if we can set up these mini nurseries across B&NES, and perhaps these can be known locations, and people will, if they then do have a few, for example, hazel or oak that's popped up in their garden, you know, they could take them to the local mini nursery. They could grow them on for a couple of years before we find a home for them. But, you know, we're looking at, you know, if you look at the community effort in the UK at the moment, you know, with this coronavirus situation, it's so reassuring to see this massive volunteer growth. You know, B&NES 3SG locally are doing a fantastic job. You know, 2,500 volunteers signed up. And then nationally, 750,000 volunteers to help people during this pandemic. And, you know, we need this kind of mobilisation for climate change, you know, and part of that is growing trees. You know, tree planting isn't the only solution, but it's a really, really big part of the solution. So, you know, if you think about during the Second World War, there was that Dig for Victory campaign. You know, right now, everyone, because they can't get all the fruit and veg they need in the shops, you know, there's people are growing stuff at home and sharing plants. You know, well, we want to do this for trees. You know, we want to help all these amazing organisations hit their tree planting targets. So that's where the idea came from.
Yeah, I'm getting a real sense that people are really interested in growing their own food at the moment. That this crisis has really brought that to the forefront of their attention.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've got a few questions now. So I think Chris Head, I wonder if that's Chris Head from Wern, the West of England Rural Network. But he's going, what impact has ash dieback, or is ash dieback having on your plans to plant trees? Because my garden's certainly full of ash saplings. But what's the point?
Yeah, me too. And I was keeping a load of my ash saplings alive just in case I had the 1 in a billion tree that was resistant to it. But they keep popping out, so I'm not bothering now because they'll keep coming. But yeah, I mean, it's obviously really, really sad. I mean, one of the things that we're doing is we're getting advice from some of the tree officers in the council and from information sources elsewhere to plant varieties of trees that will be helpful for the wildlife that are reliant on ash. You know, I think it's just inevitable that we will lose, you know, potentially all of our ash. You know, we may be able to pre-populate with a particular European strain, maybe. My knowledge is only, you know, so deep, but what we're doing is, yeah, looking at what wildlife are reliant on ash and then, yeah, the planting species that will be helpful for them.
And I've got, I'm not sure it's Bernice, Robert, or Nick from East Hartree under the same email, but making the point that a lot of our hedgerows are cut back very hard each year. So how do you protect your planting if you're planting a lot of hedgerow stuff? Are you talking about just expanding that boundary to a field? Because it'd be a shame to plant a load of hedgerow just to have it hacked to death every summer.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, so far we haven't actually planted. I suppose we have planted hedgerows along by roads. I mean, it's all down to the landowner, really. You know, it depends what desire. I mean, most of the projects we've worked with, it's been people that are passionate about, you know, wildlife and nature and climate change, and so, you know, we've planned the planting with them, you know, so that they're clear on what it will be like when these trees are mature. And of course, you know, sometimes, you know, they end up changing plans. We find with a couple of schools where we've planted, they've ended up deciding to change the format of the buildings, and they've had to get rid of a few trees, which is a bit sad. But, you know, you've just got to keep going, and you're going to lose some.
On the hedgerow question, actually, one of the things that I'm aware of that the council has been discussing is the possibility of just cutting one side of the hedgerow each year.
Ah, yeah, okay. Yeah, that's good.
We've got a question from Lorna, who is asking, how do you manage the trees as time goes on? Is that up to the landowner, or? Yeah,
hi Lorna. Yeah, so we would completely run out of steam if we were responsible for all of the trees for, you know, forever. The first few years are critical, so obviously they need to be planted well, and there's certain things you need to do. We found mulching with wood chip, you know, staking with an appropriate stake, you know, and then going back in the summer before the really hot weather and topping up the wood chip, restaking, you know, weeding. We've been quite successful. We haven't had to use any chemicals so far in terms of spraying, which would be a lot, you know, less labour intensive, but it's just not really in our ethos. So yeah, what we generally do for the first few years is we'll get volunteer parties in the spring and summer to go back and do a bit of TLC, and then once they've been in the ground for a few years, then, you know, they'll just fly then.
Chloe has said, thank you for saying more about community nurseries. I started growing small saplings and rehoming too. So I was just wondering, on that sort of point, is it better to pot them up or grow them bare roots? You know, and if you've got a plot of land, are you going to have to sort of put some sort of sheeting down to suppress the weeds and then plant the trees in rows? And I mean, do you have to dig it? You know, what's involved? Do you have to dig them up every year to make sure the roots don't get too big? Or I have no idea what's involved in.
Yeah, well, I mean, it really depends on what you're doing. I mean, I started by doing it all in pots, and I just found it an absolute nightmare in the summer trying to keep them alive, and just having to water them every day, you know, and then thinking about, well, hang on, it's mains water, that's not great for the environment, it's costing me money, it's costing the climate, and then a lot of them dying anyway. So I found it much more successful to be growing trees in the ground. And I mean, I've got a spare veg bed at home. And then at Dry Arch Nursery, they've rotivated the ground, and we've been planting them straight in the ground and just doing a huge amount of weeding and putting cardboard and mulch down, you know. But certain trees would benefit from starting off in a polytunnel, you know, so there's all sorts of different ways of doing it, you know. And I think people are going to have different levels, different, you know, areas of space, different levels of knowledge, and different levels of time. You know, but I think there would be something for everyone, you know. You know, it could be just half a veg bed, or it could be a whole field. You know, it's really going to depend on, you know, who's got what time. But I think what we want to do is get everyone together. So, okay, who's got space? Who's got time? Who's got knowledge? You know, because our knowledge of growing trees is relatively limited, frankly. You know, we'd love to see if there's a commercial tree nursery or garden centre that would like to partner with us on this. You know, and also who's got funding. I mean, one of the beautiful things about this idea is it could be done with no money whatsoever, you know, but, you know, funding would help us achieve more sooner. We could be building polytunnels, we could be buying materials which we donate to schools, you know, we could even hire someone to coordinate this whole project. So, you know, like I said, we're quite keen to do as much as possible without, you know, any money or little money as possible, but I think we could do a lot more. So, you know, we're reliant completely on public donations. You know, we've got no paid staff, so every pound that we receive goes straight into some kind of tree planting project. And, you know, if there's any grant-making organisations with relevant schemes, you know, please get in touch. You know, and maybe there's any businesses, you know, businesses that might want to, you know, donate money or donate a team of volunteers, or they might have space. you know, it could be, I don't know, a factory car park where actually they could put in a few raised beds and grow on a few trees and give their staff something different to do in their lunch break. I don't know.
Yeah.
Great idea.
I've got some questions now. I've got Ian Souter. Have you done much planting in northeast Somerset? Well, I know you've been at my neighbours, just inside northeast Somerset. How much work is needed long term for maintenance of trees? And do you get resistance from people concerned about damage to streets, houses or walls, I would add?
So in terms of northeast Somerset, I mean, we are more trees to B&NES. You know, I live in Bath. Most of our projects have been in Bath. We've been really keen to do more outside of Bath, and we've always made sure we've contacted, you know, all of the councillors. We have done projects in Peasdown, in 2 or 3 in Peasdown. We've done some in Keynsham. I think what we found is funny, when we go, the more rural you go, the more, or the less people think they need trees. I think when you're in a more urban environment, you get more of a sense that it's needed. I don't know if that's what it is, but yeah, I mean, we are guilty of having done more in Bath, but that's just because we followed the path of least resistance. That's just where we've just happened to have had people come forward with interest. But we'd love to hear from people elsewhere in B&NES as well. And so there's other question. There's one about worry about where trees are. I mean, you know, you've got to put the right tree in the right place. So we're always really conscious of what that tree will be like when it's mature. So how wide will it be? How tall will it be? You know, what's the impact? Is it going to drop sticky things on people's cars? You know, I mean, we haven't done much in the streets, but we will always look at the location and have a think about, you know, what's going to be suitable. And we'll always get some expert advice to make sure we're doing the right thing.
Nick came back with a follow-up. Can B&NES, it might be one for Sarah and I, can B&NES do anything to encourage contractors to follow its own in-house maintenance guidance? Certainly the farmers cut the hedgerows around here, and it's short back and sides. But at least that cut has been pushed out to August, the end of August now. So there's lots of opportunities for birds to get a second nesting. How much good comes? So this is Jeremy asking, how much good comes from planting trees? I've read that I need to plant 1 hectare each year to offset my carbon emissions.
You must be emitting a lot of carbon. Yeah, I mean, look, it's not going to solve climate change. You know, if everyone keeps releasing the same amount of carbon into the atmosphere, there won't be enough space to plant trees. It's part of the jigsaw. It's an essential part of the jigsaw, but it's definitely not going to solve the problem on its own.
Okay, and sorry, Sarah, did you want to add anything?
No, that's fine.
Chloe, you followed up about ash, so hopefully we answered that. Sue, there's an interesting. Are Cllr on board with using housing land that they're managing as a Western resident? Plenty of green spaces here. I think you mentioned Western to start with. Did you, Adam?
Yeah, we've done 2. So with Cllr, we've done 2 projects this winter. So in Moorlands Estates, actually one in Moorlands, and then there was one in Peasdown a couple of years before. So they've got their own tree officer that's been really, really helpful, and they've, you know, put some money towards that as well. So I think there's a lot more we could do. We'd be quite keen to partner with Cllr a bit more closely. The local residents are particularly enthusiastic about it.
So I think Chris is asking back on to community nurseries. Can you talk through your methodology in your community nurseries? So he's saying, what, plant seeds, pots, repot thin, resite, etc. How long before they need to be planted out? And certainly, touching on some of the worries I have. I mean, we may have been talking whilst he asked that question, but after a while, trees can get pretty deep rooted. And it's hard to get them out of the ground. I mean, how long? I mean, you're going to need trees every season, aren't you?
Yeah. I mean, every winter, where, you know, trees will be wanted by all of these different projects that are being planted. Yeah. I mean, I haven't ever run a full tree nursery. I've never worked in a tree nursery. My technical knowledge is limited. You know, like I said, we've been buying most of our trees, so this is really a kind of a new idea for us, a new kind of drive for us. So, you know, we're really keen to. There's obviously really good information out there, and we've got, you know, some good books and things like that. And it's going to depend on the space what people have got. You know, it's going to be a learning curve for us, but we're, you know, really keen to hear from people that know a lot more about it than us, that can, you know, help guide us.
So at this stage, it seems to be about getting the ingredients, which is people with land, people who are weeding,
Yeah.
people who can gather stuff up and take it to the people with the land, and people who are willing to go along to the place where there is land, do a bit of weeding, support the trees, water them so it's about pulling together all the different ingredients, it seems.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where we see our roles being, you know, a bit of a kind of organisational role to put all these people in touch with each other. You know, ideally, we would have a really decent website that would automate a lot of this, where people could see where nurseries are. They could put in their address and it would show them where their closest nursery is, where they can drop off a tree or go along and do an hour's volunteering. So if there's anyone out there that wants to help us build a website that is more than just a brochure, we'd love to hear from them. In the meantime, this is going to create a lot of admin and organising for us. So we'd also be really interested in anyone that's, you know, got a bit of time. You know, all of this could be done at the end of a phone and laptop. You know, I find that the 12 years that I've been doing this, I spend more time organising it and emailing and phoning than I actually do planting trees. So you know, we've got some volunteers that are having a significant impact on what we're doing, and they're not actually physically able to help us plant trees. They're still able to make a really big difference.
That's interesting. That's interesting. Well, Joe thinks you're a brilliant group, but asks, are you able to provide volunteer parties with equipment for the day? I mean, you said it was your brother who brings the 4x4 with all the equipment.
Yeah, I mean, we've bought a few spades, and you know, we will spend money that we raise on spades to make sure that when we've got a planting event that people have got stuff. We often encourage people to bring their own, because most people have got a spade. But yeah, we can absolutely supply volunteers. So if, you know, particularly for some kind of community relevant, you know, projects, public space, you know, we're open-minded. It's, you know, there's been quite a few projects where we haven't, as a committee, actually gone along at all, but we've promoted it, and, you know, 10, 20 people from our Facebook group have turned up. So yeah, please do get us in touch, and we're very happy to promote other people's planting events, definitely.
And we've got some quick fire questions really, I think, coming in now. Will the council support bulk purchase of tree guards, geotextile and tree supports? Yeah, I've planted 2 orchards here, and I get worried about the amount of plastic I'm putting around my trees. What do you use?
Yeah, so we generally use plastic rabbit spirals.
Yeah.
With bamboo canes if it's just a hedgerow whip. You can get biodegradable ones, which clearly is much better. They are more expensive and they don't last as long. So there's a real, you know, decision there. If we're planting bigger trees, say for example, maiden fruit trees or something like that, it needs a more substantial stake, you know, and sometimes deer, you know, might need a plastic deer thing, you know, and it is a real shame. You know, we don't want to be using plastic. I mean, one thing we do to mitigate against that is we try and reuse stuff where we can.
Yeah.
But in terms of the council bulk buying, I'm not sure.
But whoever's got that idea, if you want to pop it in an email to me, I'm really happy that we go and look into it. And I'd love to do that if we possibly can. The drawback, of course, will be that, you know, there's been an article in today's Chronicle about the financial impact of coronavirus on the council, but we'll do what we can. So do send me the details.
Alistair's asked, will you get contact details for Adam? It's moretreesbaines at
gmail.com.
Gmail.com. Yeah, moretreesbaines.
We don't have a proper website at the moment. What we're using as a website is moretreesbaines.interests.me. We're also on Facebook, we're on Twitter. If you just Google More Trees Baines, you'll find us. Hopefully someone will come along and help us build a proper website.
Jeremy, quick one. I hope we've answered that. Do you recommend planting whips or bigger trees? You kind of indicated you do both.
Yeah, we do both. It totally depends on what you want to do. I mean, whips are obviously much cheaper and they're much easier to plant, so you can get a much larger number of them in the ground faster and for a smaller budget. But it depends. You might want more immediate impact, or you might want a variety that is only available as an older, more expensive specimen. Yeah, I mean, more than 90% of what we planted has been hedgerow whips that have cost, less than £2 each.
Because Jeremy's also asked, what's the objective of planting trees in a systemic way? Is it a closed wood or something that's safe for the community to walk through? Are you planting woods?
Well, every project's different. So sometimes it might be a community orchard, in some grassland, or it might be some trees on the edge of a park. Up near you, Matt, we've been restoring woodland. So there's a strip of woodland near Rush Hill, and over the years, the fields have, encroached. The trees have been felled, and you can see quite clearly on the map that the trees would have followed this line. And so with the landowner, we've planted up a segment to kind of restore that woodland. But yeah, every project's different, and it depends if it's public land, private, whether there's a footpath.
So there's a question, I can't quite make out whether it's Niall G. Rob or something like that, but can I replant tree saplings in the countryside that I find in my garden?
With the landowner's permission, yes.
Yes, certainly as a rural councillor, I would say don't ever do it without the landowner's permission. Also, make sure you know that it's a native species, because the countryside doesn't need invasive species, that's for sure.
The guerrilla planting thing, I mean, to be honest, when we first set up the group, we thought we'd be doing a lot of that. But then what we found is that actually there wasn't a huge shortage of places to plant trees, certainly on the relatively small scale that we've been doing. And, if you plant a tree and the landowner has agreed what you're planting, it's much more likely that it will stay there. The guerrilla tree planting that we have seen people doing have almost always, without fail, the trees have been ripped out because they weren't the right tree in the right place. The landowner didn't want them there. So I think until we completely run out of places where the landowner wants trees, I don't think we should consider guerrilla planting at all.
Yeah. Jeremy's come back with another question. My neighbours have bought a wood of sorts in the skyline in Bath. It's mostly covered in pioneer species, ash, sycamore. The latter are very closely planted. Who can help with the management of mature trees?
Not us. You'll need
me.
Yeah, my brother, Neil Gretton.
big plug for Neil Gretton there. So some arboriculturalists would be the answer to that. I'm sure there's people who can provide advice. Sue,
I should say the Bathscape organisation. So Bathscape have a land advisory service which is free to landowners, where they will come out. I think it's being run by the Forest of Avon. I think John from the Forest of Avon will come out and for free will look at your land and give you free advice on managing it.
Sue was saying, what advice on trees to plant in our front gardens? Small ones.
It's going to depend so much on how much space. But look at what the tree will, when it's mature, how wide will it be, how tall will it be, and just think about that. Don't plant it right next to a wall. Have a think about whether you want blossom, whether you want it to attract birds, whether you want it to produce something to eat. There's some really good websites. If you look at the tree nursery websites, Ashford and Chew Valley Trees, it's just two examples. They're really good to, in helping you decide, what kind of tree you might like.
Yeah, and certainly in terms of the right tree in the right place, our gardens can take some of the more exotic trees. So I'd say as a beekeeper, there's the bee drought in July, but there are some trees that flower in July, as well as the native lime. There's some very beautiful foreign trees. Again, you can't plant those in the countryside, but you can plant them in your gardens and in parks. Beware though, some of them do get very big, like false acacia, things like that. So and the tulip tree, I think, as well as one. Or the foxglove tree, I can't remember, one or the other. But the trees that flower in July are very good for bees. Sue also points out that if you use Ecosia instead of Google, it plants trees with its advertising revenue. And Alistair come back to say that the email. Well, Alistair, I will email you the contact. Jeremy says that you've met him. Okay. Chris is saying there might be reason to plant non-native trees and non-native stock? Okay, so I just covered that for bees. Are there any other times when you might plant something that's not native?
Well, we're getting a lot of people saying, well, how about, you know, climate is changing, whether we like it or not, however much we slow it down, you know, climate is changing. And so there's varieties that are going to be suitable to how we predict the climate's going to be in decades to come. So far, we haven't gone down that route, to be honest. We've just been blinkers on, planting native, hoping it all stays the same, but, you know, realistically knowing it's not. So, I mean, that's a really interesting one. I mean, we're not going to start planting non-native stuff without some very, very good advice behind us. But there is an argument to be planting stuff that is going to be, you know, adapting to our future climate. Yeah.
I think that some of the trees that the council is considering as replacements for ash, some of them are non-native. I think it will depend on the individual location and exactly what they're looking for in the tree that will replace the ash that they're going to have to take down. But some of those will be non-native.
Okay, so I think that's it for. Let me just check. That's about it for the questions. So I will hand back to you, Sarah.
Okay, well, I just need to say a really big thank you to Adam for coming and answering questions, and for Matt McCabe, who's helped me organise the event, and to Matt Back, who's been technical support in the background, and to all of you, the audience, who've come along and joined in and contributed questions. We'll be having another session next Thursday, the 7th of May at 6 o'clock, when I'll be interviewing Donald and Laurie McIntyre from Emersgate Seeds, which is a local business, the UK's largest supplier of seeds of native wild British flowers and grasses. So I really hope you'll be able to join me to learn about meadows and grasslands. So thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Sarah. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.